Most AI projects never make it past the prototype stage. The problem isn't lack of good ideas. There are great ideas. The problem is it's the fragmented infrastructure. Data in one place, vectors in another, and models somewhere else. Every connection is a point of failure. Couchbase is looking at solving this problem. They just released Couchbase AI services, their answer to the prototype to production problem. It's simple. Unify everything in one platform, data, vectors, models, governance, so enterprises can actually ship agentic application that work at a scale. Let's dig into what that actually means and whether it solves the problems developers are facing today. And to dive deeper into this announcement, we have with us once again Rahul Pradhan, SVP of Product Management at Couchbase. Rahul, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Swapnil, and great to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Let's start with the prototype to production problem. Walk me through what's actually breaking when companies try to move AI projects from proof of concept to production. Is it a data problem, an infrastructure problem, or something else?
Over the last several years, we've been partnering very closely with several of our customers as they build some of these Gen AI and agentic experiences. And what starts out as a POC is fairly straightforward. You can use your public APIs, whether it's OpenAI or any of the foundation models, and use a sample set of your data in order to prove out the value of the use cases. What happens is when you're about to move that from POC to production, that's where the rubber meets the road. So you need to now figure out what data are you going to use to prompt the models and what context are you going to give the models. The models at that point, given that they have access to the data, and AI, as we all know, if we heavily depend on the kind of data that is used to prompt the AI model or provided as a context to the AI model, customers are extremely reluctant to send their data outside of their security boundaries for security, privacy, governance reasons. Those are some of the challenges that they run into. The other issue is as you start kind of building the overall AI pipeline for your agentic applications, all of those different components typically reside in various different data stores. So you have an operational data store, which has the most up-to-date data that you want your agent to look into in order to give your end user the latest context and the personalized results that they're looking for. And more often than not, the language that the models speak, which is all about vectors, is stored in a separate database, which is a vector database. So there is almost a translation layer that needs to happen, or scaffolding that needs to be built around in order to move the data across these multiple data stores and keep them sync across each other. The other interesting aspect is all these years, most of our organizations, if you look at the most dominant portion of the data, it has been the unstructured data. And we have traditionally not been very successful in unlocking the capabilities of that unstructured data, be that PDFs, CSVs, spreadsheets, calendar invites, what have you. Gen AI gives us the ability to now bring that data in addition to the structured data that exists in databases, and then combine them together, vectorize, and give your end user a complete picture of what they're looking for. So if you think about all of the different pipelines and the different data stores that these data reside in, it requires a significant amount of heavy lifting and fragile code that needs to be created by developers in order to move them across the different pipelines, to get it to the AI models, and in order to give them the results. So that's the biggest challenge that customers face. And what customers are finding is it's okay to do a POC with that. That's why there are numerous statistics that say the fall off between a successful POC to a production and the conversion of that, it is pretty limited. that also reflects in some of the anxiousness that enterprises feel in terms of how meaningful Gen AI is going to be for them, and that's primarily because of the context that's provided to the models. So what we are trying to do here at Couchbase is to be able to bridge that gap between POC to production to help our customers build these production grade experiences using AI close to their data as efficiently as possible.
You are integrating Nvidia NIM microservices and Nemotron models directly into the database platform. Most people think of databases and AI models as two different separate layers. What changes when you bring models into the same platform where the data lives? What does that unlock for developers?
Yeah, so if you think about what's required for just to build an AI agent, right? You need both the data and the models, and ultimately, what comes down to is you need the model nearer to your data, so that you are first of all not you are ensuring the security, privacy, and governance of the data that you are using to prompt the model with. So that's one aspect. That's one of the things that we are very particular about in terms of how do we enable that for our customers. So having that the models or having the entire NVIDIA enterprise stack to be able to be co-located with the database is a key capability of that. The other aspect you mentioned about developers is from a developer perspective, what developers really are looking for are to build those agentic experiences. They are not looking to manage additional infrastructure or to figure out how do they get the data between the database to the model itself. That's where getting that fully integrated within a database platform gives the developer the agility and the fast-paced development environment in order to build those agentic experiences as quickly as possible, and then transition them from POC, prove it that it's working, and then move that into production, all on the same infrastructure.
Let's talk about the governance piece. You got the agent catalog, you have validation guardrails, and you have traceability features. How do you actually verify outputs and track what's happening without killing performance? Because that trade off usually forces you to pick one or the other.
And that's a very important trade-off in terms of AI, because as we all know, the AI models are probabilistic in nature, which is why it's very, very important for a mechanism in place in order to actually trace what the inputs were to the model, what the outputs are from the model, and whether the model are actually adhering to your guidelines in terms of whether it's your brand or the kind of data that you are prompting the model with. This is where our agent catalog comes in. We provide the ability for developers to get visibility into the complete chain of interaction between the database and the AI models themselves. We give them the ability to do tracing and governance on the data. So to do that, what we have done is one, like you mentioned, we are partnered with Nvidia, so there are numerous guarded models that they could actually spun up right next to the data in order to validate that. We're also partnering with a couple of different vendors in this space for traceability and observability, as well as on evals, to ensure that developers, as they go through developing these experiences, are able to run evals to ensure that the models are actually adhering to the policies and the guidelines that they have set themselves up for.
Now let's talk about day two operations. Once something is running in production, how are you helping teams monitor for hallucinations or drift? And how do you manage inference cost as applications scale? Because those costs can pile up very quickly.
If you look at agentic experiences, AI application, that's something that's on top of people's mind. So there are a couple of ways we are able to address that within our platform. So one is if you talk about hallucination, Ultimately, what hallucinations are, there are numerous reasons why a model can potentially hallucinate. One of the main reasons is the kind of context that is provided to the model. This is all comes down to the memory that an agent has access to, what it is searching through, whether it's finding the relevant content that it actually needs to prompt the model with. That's where the context comes in. There's a whole field of context engineering that has basically come up. So with the ability of our database to have essentially an operational data store and a vector and the vectorized data right next to each other, we are eliminating the drift in terms of what you would have between data consistency between an operational store and vector store. So whatever you prompt the agent or the model with is always going to be the most accurate data as it resides within your database. So that's one element of how we are ensuring that the hallucinations are eliminated or reduced for agents and for AI applications. The other aspect you've mentioned about is around the what we were talking about previously with regards to traceability and evals. Again, having that capability to actually show you what the prompt is, what the response was, and then you can piece it together based on the data that was used to prompt it, gives the developer the ability to have to run a complete eval suite on the platform itself, so that they can actually determine whether the model has or the there's a drift in terms of the responses that they're seeing, and what they can make take some actions in order to in order to figure that out. The other aspect comes down to cost, right? We all know how expensive AI is. GPUs are a scarce resource and are a pretty expensive resource as well. This is where, again, Couchbase as a overall platform, the capabilities that we have and what we have added on to them help us kind of address this cost. So if you look at Couchbase, the database itself, we are a KV cache and a document data store, all JSON native. What we have done is we have expanded that capability in order to bring semantic caching within within that ecosystem of services we have. So now, when you are starting to have, imagine a conversation with a chatbot or an agent that you're having, for responses that you have previously asked for or the memories that you've had in the past, you may not necessarily need to go to a model in order to actually get the relevant response back. All of that is cached within the caching engine we have on the database itself. That eliminates unnecessary requests into the models, which obviously reduces the number of tokens, and eventually, with the amount of traffic and the throughput that is expected of the model going down, you are also able to optimize the model infrastructure to right size for the use cases that you are seeing.
You have partnership with Nvidia. Can you talk about where does the Nvidia partnership specifically matter here? What are you doing together that you could not have done separately?
The biggest benefit we have with the partnership with NVIDIA is the ability to have the models and the NVIDIA infrastructures. If you look at the NVIDIA enterprise stack, it's based on a microservices-based architecture. So all of the capabilities that they are building on the model side are readily available within the platform, right close to your data. Right. So all the things we talked about in terms of security, privacy, and governance, if we didn't have that partnership with them, that would have to be resided somewhere outside of the system. That would have need some heavy lifting to be done by developers and customers in order to make that work in a self-managed manner. That's the thing that we are also reducing or taking the burden away from customers. The other aspect is, as you're probably aware, like our database can run in various different modes. It just can run as a fully managed service within Capella, which is our database as a service offering. It can run on-prem. It can run on self-managed environments within a cloud. Again, all of those environments also give the customers the ability to spin up an NVIDIA NIM infrastructure, which is essentially based off of Kubernetes, and so is our database. And they can get a consistent experience whether they're on-prem, both from a data and AI perspective, as well as from a cloud perspective, which is really a huge unlock for them because they can experiment in whatever type of environment is ideal for them and then move it to production in the environment that makes sense the most for them.
You are positioning this for agentic AI applications specifically, not just retrieval or basic RAG. What makes an agentic workload different from a reliability and governance standpoint? And also, what new problems does that create?
If you look at agents and what's needed, I think the semantic search and the retrieval capability, that is obviously one of the foundational capabilities that we excel at. So that's something that we already have within the platform. I think the additional components is what agents are expected to do out of the data, right? It's not just a single. In the old world, you would make a call to a database, you get a result, and your essentially application processes that result, or that was the result that you were looking for. In the agentic world, when you're building an agent needs to plan through an operation and through or break down operation into multiple steps, make one or more calls into the database, and then based on the retrieval from those calls, make a decision in terms of what is the next step to be done. That could be again going into the database. That could be going to another data source in order to get that. What we are bringing here is the ability to enable agents to do that on a platform that can include both their short-term as well as their long-term memory. So you have the context that is far-ranging than what you would typically have for agents who are for if you didn't have a platform like this. And then the caching element that I talked about is it reduces the latency, gives them the high performance that is needed in order to make decisions in real time. Because remember, ultimately, whether it's a chat conversation or a voice conversation, the real timeliness of the response that you get out of the data is of paramount importance. Like how many times have we tried chatted with something or had a voice conversation, and if there's a perceived latency, then the experience is just not good, and you're not going to have customers trying that or users trying that out effectively. So those are some of the key things about helping agents in giving them the context and the memory layer needed to make the decisions to plan those things, to plan their workflows. Is critically important, and to be able to do that at a performance and scale and latency that is required is kind of what the core foundation of our platform is.
And before we wrap this up, can you talk about where do you think this is headed? A year from now, what does production AI infrastructure look like if teams get this right?
The way I would say that is, I think if we are just seeing the rise of agents, I think we are going to have a lot more of these agentic experiences being built by customers. What I would love to see is a lot of them actually move from POC to production, and the way to make that happen is to be able to use all the context that exists within your enterprise. So think of the unstructured data, think of the operational data that exists, the transactional data that exists, and that all of that needs to be converted into a vector, into vectors eventually to be able to index, store, retrieve that data in for agents to make decisions. So if you think about kind of the spectrum across that, right, I think the ability to look at a database or a platform and view the capability as the unification of the unstructured data, the structured data, the semi-structured data, kind of all coming together, all vectorized in a format that an AI model or an agent can communicate with, and then being able to build those agentic experience is what we strongly believe is going to accelerate the journey for enterprises to move from POC to production. And what I'm hoping is by end of next year, we're talking about really high performant, scalable agents that most of the enterprises are starting to develop or seeing come to fruition.
Rahul, thank you for joining me and breaking down how Couchbase is trying to make agentic AI truly production ready. The key takeaway for me and for audience is that prototype to production gap is real, and solving it requires unifying the stack, not just adding more tools to it. So thanks for sharing your insights, and I look forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you so much, Swapnil, for having me.
And for those watching, if you are dealing with the complexity of moving AI from prototype to production, check out Couchbase AI services. We'll put the links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to TFR, like this video, and share it with your team. Thanks for watching.